Um, I learned how to play in 2nd edition, and 3rd and a half edition was where I really got my 3rd and a half edition is where I really got my feet wet. And then I attempted 4th edition, wasn't too huge on it, got into Pathfinder. Pathfinder was mwah. And then I had another instance with D&D 4th Ed where it was run a lot more properly. And properly run 4th Ed actually is fun. I will give 4th Ed a lot of credit because there's a lot of stuff that they do very, very right, especially if you're very... The way the 4th edition, it seemed very hard to keep up with it, and it would have made a much better video game than a tabletop game. Yeah, absolutely. 4th Ed felt like it could have been a video game, and they were planning on making one, but things happened. Again, look up the story behind it, and be prepared to be really mortified by it. I will admit that my drug of choice, and this is going to show up backwards, but here's my book. Pathfinder 2nd Ed is my current favorite. I like Pathfinder 2nd Ed a lot because I feel like Pathfinder 2nd Ed, the way that character creation works, the fact that you can literally, like, the way you select your class features works in Pathfinder 2nd Ed is that instead of, oh, you're a 1st level rogue, this is your 1st level rogue ability, and that's that. It's your 1st level rogue. Which one of these 4 rogue abilities do you want? Do you, like, every class in Pathfinder 2nd Edition has obvious paths, and you can walk down one path or you can hybridize, and there's a lot more of the, I want my character to be this and do this, and the game lets you do it. I play Exalted 3rd Ed more than anything these days just by preference of our local DM. I actually have not played Exalted. I'd like to. I hear really good things about it, especially if you're really into, like, playing with power. And I like the concept of playing with power. It's off-related, it's sort of related, but not really, but sort of. Part of the reason why Diablo 3 I felt was so attractive to people is that Diablo 3 made it a point to make you feel powerful right from level 1. And that's a big deal. One of the things about early RPGs is that, like, 2nd edition, if you played a wizard at 1st level and you had a bad HP roll, that was a nightmare. Your bones had the structural integrity of a wet paper bag, and you could do 2 cool things, and then you had to sleep. Maybe 3 if you got really, really lucky with your rolls. Tabletop game where crafting takes part in a center stage. See, the thing is that if you get to the point where you can start crafting in a lot of these tabletop games, crafting is the end-all be-all, because you could literally do whatever you want. But in a lot of the games, like, in a good number of the games, crafting is such a difficult thing to do. Like, you want to craft magical gear? Cool. You better know how to cast the spells. You better have taken the feats to learn it. You better be willing to give up experience points. It's not great. This actually, like, the whole thing, Baldur's Gate, Pathfinder, Exalted, all of it, the whole amalgamation of it is why I've been working on my own tabletop for the past 7 years. Like, because I've been trying to write a game that has all of the tropes that I like, trying to simplify it, trying to take all these things that I liked from other games and put them into one. And I've gone through so many iterations of, like, first I had a class system, then I didn't have a class system, then I had a class system again, then I had a kind of modified class system where instead of, oh, I'm this class and I've leveled it X amount of times, it's, I'm an adventurer and I've taken part in things that make me a pirate, so now I'm a pirate. And, like, class systems are great, class systems are all well and good, but ultimately what's ended up happening with mine is that the class system doesn't exist. There is no class system. You want to be a fighter? Raise your strength. Learn weapon skills. You want to be a mage? Raise your intelligence or your willpower and learn these spells. You want to be a rogue? Here's finesse and agility. Do that. You want to be a warlord? Well, you better work on your charisma too. the end result was to be the guy that helped supply my party, and especially myself, with great gear, I'd take it. And that's the thing. Random gear from dungeons and from quests and whatnot, that's exciting. But being the guy that could be like, okay, well, yeah, that sword was nice, but I know you really wanted to get, like, an accuracy enchantment on that instead. I got you, fam. That feels really good. And, like, that's a thing that's so sorely lacking in traditional tabletop games. I mean, some tabletop games, I'm sure there are some DMs out there who are rolling their eyes at me, just complaining that, oh, you don't play the game right if you don't do crafting. And I'm like, crafting's great, but it's so inaccessible. It's so painfully inaccessible. Like, almost no one wants to do it. Almost no one wants to do it. And the other unfortunate fact is that the way that most DMs run games, like, I could be wrong here, but from the experiences that I've had in my, oh god, I feel old, 27 years of playing Dungeons & Dragons and the like. 27 years. A solid 75% of my life, good lord. You've never seen anyone that wants to run crafting, let alone do it. Exactly! Nobody wants to run crafting. And nobody wants to... No DMs want to run crafting. No players want to bother with crafting, because the DM usually provides gear enough that it's like, oh, why would I bother trying to craft this thing when I just got a +4 keen... +4 keen Vorpal Scimitar? Why do I need anything other than this? Hey, check this out. You're beheaded, you're beheaded, you're beheaded. Yay! Yeah, Pathfinder crafting is such a pain. It's so bad. Oh, God, don't get... I've already been on that rant. I might continue to be on that rant. But it's such a negative thing. One character in an Exalted game that tried to go a steampunk crafter route. Sign me the hell up. Yes. God, yes. And then eventually she was like, yeah, can I just reroll? That's such a shame, though. That's like... Not to get too much back into my own project, because I don't want to gush about my own project for so long, but the biggest freaking goal that I've had in the 7 years that I've been working on my game, which I've titled The Wanderer's Way, so that way if I say TWW, you'll know what I'm talking about, is that my goal for the game, the biggest one thing that... The one absolute everything starts and ends here goal is that I want to make the game so that if you can think it, you can be it, and it's feasible. Because there's so many games out there where it's like, yeah, you can do this, but why would you want to? We'll put the options on paper, but you really shouldn't. You should do this instead. You should do this instead. You should do this instead. Oh, you better be ready for combat. You better be ready to take a gazillion hits. This is what we're doing. I hate that. I hate it. I hate it. Like, I understand. Here we go. Jason's hot takes about tabletop role-playing games. Here we go. All right. Yes, it is the dungeon master's duty, the game master's duty, to run the game. I'll agree to that. I agree that having an idea of what to do, having an outline, that is also a game master's duty. But what the game master's ultimate duty is that if you're going to run a game, you better be ready for your players to write the story. You're not the one in charge of that. They're the ones that decide what happens and how it happens. And if you're going to be a good game master, you have to be ready to roll with those proverbial punches. Let me catch up on chat. Actually, it's funny, one game mechanic I thought would be interesting was something along the kind of spellcrafting, and the concept is if you have that spell accessible in your inventory or on your person, then you can infuse certain effects into it. Brought it up session 0. I don't know if you'll want to do that. If you try to have a story, you'll inevitably have a party full of murder hobos. Lol, 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 lol. Yeah, that's the thing. Okay, so I'm gonna address these one at a time because I want to address all these points in turn because they're good. Captain Drago, I love that idea. I love the fact that like, magic is such a big deal in these games. And some games take magic and go nuts with it. Mage, play mage. Absolutely play mage, because you can do whatever you can dream up in that game. But I do like the concept of mages, of magicians, wizards, sorcerers, spellcasters in general, being able to take their craft and expand what they're able to do with it. I love the idea. I wish more games were able to do it. I think it's great. Grimmy, if you try to have a story, you'll inevitably have a party full of murder hobos. And it's true. You know why? Because if you try to force a story on your party, they're going to be like, well, nothing we do matters, so let's just murder everything. It's come to the point where, like, the active part of the game is the part where we're killing things. So let's just start killing things. If you let them shape the story, then they're gonna care. You have to make them care about the story by making it their story. If you're GMing, it's not your story. It's not your story. You are helping your players write their story. That's how you be a good GM. That's how you create a world where they care, where they'll talk about it for months after the fact. I'm getting a little heated here. I'm sorry. I'm a little touch hype about this. But yeah, this is something that I'm really passionate about. And this is why, like, I know Gail's been really, really excited for me to do this, and I'm increasingly thinking, you have still yet to be in a D&D campaign that lasts more than like 5 sessions. You were going to try to DM at one point, but not confident, don't know enough to really do it. The thing about being a DM is that, like, the biggest skill that you can have as a DM is to just have an open mind. Because not everything is going to go perfect, not everything is going to go your way. You have to be willing to roll with the punches. If you are nimble-minded enough that you can take any situation and just go with it and sculpt around it, you're going to find that you have a lot more to do. And even if you're not, like, encyclopedic knowledge about the game and about the rules, don't worry about that. You've got other players that will help you with that. You've got books. You've got the fact that you're GM and your word goes. But if you're willing to work with the players, because, like, one of my recent experiences had a GM where, like, he kept treating the combats as if it were players versus DM. You're not fighting the players, you're fighting to help the players. You're trying to sculpt a story. Make the decision, stand behind it, be consistent. If you make the decision for one player like that, make the decision for all decisions like that. If you make a rule, stand by it. You have to be willing to accept that sometimes bad things happen to characters. You can shape the experience a little bit so that you can try to avoid that, but you gotta keep an open mind about things. You gotta be ready. I would love, like, Baldur's Gate has feel in terms of rolling with the options. They give you options based around what a player might want to do. Baldur's Gate 3 actually does do that pretty well, because, like, because in previous Baldur's Gate games, or even, like, any Pathfinder-based games, any D&D-based games, any real tabletop-heavy rule set games, there are a lot of skills in those games that it's like, yeah, I could take this skill, but why the hell would I want to? Because I'm never going to use it. And then here it's like, religion? Medicine? I've played this game for 3 hours this session, and I've made 14 religion checks. I could be exaggerating a little bit, but it feels like a lot. And the fact that they've taken all of these little considerations and given them weight, it makes it feel good. Scion 2E, and it being effectively supernatural, but, you know, good. See, the thing is that, like, everybody wants to be Matt Mercer, myself included, but the one thing that people have to recognize is that Matt Mercer has been playing D&D for years. He has a ton of experience in it. He's ultra professional. He has a plan. He has the mindset for it. He has tons of practice. It isn't something, like, I don't care how smart you are, how clever you are, how creative you are, how resourceful you are. You don't just instantly, I'm an instantly perfect DM. It doesn't happen that way. It takes work. And Matthew Mercer put in the work. And he's super passionate about it, and that's why he's such a good DM. Is it a good goal to be as good of a DM as Matthew Mercer? Sure, by all means. Is it a good goal to be Matthew Mercer? Maybe not. Because the thing is that I'm not Matt Mercer. None of y'all are Matt Mercer, unless Matt Mercer is in the audience right now. And please, by God, Senpai, notice me. Yeah, the thing is that you have to know what works for you. Because I think I've already... oh my god. I've already gone off on what I think step 1 of being a good DM is. Step 2, I mean, step 1, revolve around your players, not around yourself. Step 2, be consistent. Step 3, be authentic. Don't try to emulate anything else you've seen. Because you can base yourself around that, but you're not that. You're you. Every person on this planet is going to have a different DMing style, whether it's vast differences or minute differences. But the fact of the matter is, is that those differences are what make your story real. That's what gives them weight. Freya, don't actually send it to Matt because he's not going to watch me. But if he does, I love you. You are an inspiration to us all. But yeah, I could go on and on and on and on about this topic. Because, being a good DM is an art. It is an art, and it requires work, and it requires effort. And all of that effort means that you gotta make a first step somehow. And you have to be prepared to make mistakes, because you ain't perfect. I ain't perfect. None of us are perfect. We can perfect our craft, but that's effort. And that's why, you can't be afraid of the failure. Because if you're afraid of the failure and it stops you from running that game, if that's the reason that you don't put in the effort, then you've defeated yourself before you've even began. And yeah, not every experience that you have in Dungeons & Dragons is going to be a positive one. There's going to be times where a game runs short, or a game feels like it's lagging, or it feels like you don't have your players' attention. It's a lot of stuff. There are a lot of things to bear in mind there. But the thing is that failure is not the opposite of success, but rather a stepping stone that will get you towards it. If you apply effort correctly, you get success. If you apply effort but it's incorrect, you still get experience. If you don't apply effort, you get nothing. So you should absolutely put in the effort. It's why I'm going to be putting in more effort to get into tabletop stuff. I want to run a campaign. I might stream it. Who knows? But I want to get back into it because it's such a big part of my life and I miss it. If you want to run a campaign and you want to do something online, hit me up. If it falls into my schedule, I want to help. I want to play more games because I've done so much running of games that I miss playing it. I miss sculpting characters. I miss voice acting these characters. I mean, you can voice act as a DM, like Senpai does, but yeah, it's just at risk of sounding, kind of narcissistic here, this all ties into the kind of branding I want to do with this Twitch channel. Jason plays games, and so should you. Gaming is fun. Gaming is meant to be fun. It's meant to be shared. And I just want to have this nice safe place where we can come together, leave the scary real world behind, and start diving into one of ours. I think the main reason I don't feel the tabletop genre for me in particular is because it's really heavy on self-acting and friends. I don't have many friends, and I am not a great actor. Well, the thing is that the friends thing, you can find friends. I know that it sounds hard, and I know that me saying it point blank, blunt force like that probably feels really insincere and really insensitive. I do not mean to sound insincere and insensitive, and I apologize if I do. But the point I'm making is that, like, if there's something about that you want to change, you gotta put in the effort. And yeah, it's hard. It sucks. It's scary. Social anxiety is a hell of a drug, and practically everybody I know has it. And you don't even necessarily have to act. It doesn't necessarily have to be like the whole, I'm going to get into character and dress as my character and talk as my character. You can enjoy the game on the mechanical level. It is totally possible to do that. If it's not in your comfort zone to really slip into character like that, don't do it. That's fine. Once again, this ties into the whole thing about you need to find the group for you. The group for you is out there. You might have to do some work to hedge it together yourself, but it's very possible. I know that some of what I'm suggesting is I know that some. That's okay, my dude. D&D is how I made friends. When I moved to a new city, started going to Adventure League nights. And met people that way. And that's the thing. Like, sometimes... I'm just gonna impart some wisdom that my parents imparted upon me about keeping an open mind. And that is to keep an open mind to every person you meet, because every person on this planet knows something that you don't. And if you keep an open mind and allow them to share that something that you don't know with you, that might be the thing that changes your life forever for the better. It's all about just... It takes work. Everything takes work. But that could be said for just about everything. But the thing is that when it comes to Dungeons & Dragons, or Pathfinder, or Exalted, or Shadowrun, or whatever your poison is, like... I feel like this is one of those passionate sorts of things, because especially in today's day and age, especially in 2020 on Earth, because let's be real, Earth in 2020 sucks. It sucks hard. Who wants to be on Earth in 2020? Like, somebody could say, hey, we're going to take this rocket ship and go fire it into the sun, and I would knock somebody out to get a seat on that thing. But... you know, having a chance to escape with a few people whose presence makes your life a little bit better, that's worth the effort. That's worth the effort hardcore, if you ask me. Anyways, I might actually indeed make a highlight reel of this D&D rant, in case people need to hear it again, or in case I need to hear it again. I hope that, like... I inspired at least like a little bit of hope, or a little bit of energy, or a little bit of drive, or a little bit of devotion. Something that makes you kind of, like, to quote the Rocky movie, if you know what you're worth, then go out and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hits. You can't be pointing your fingers saying that you ain't where you want to be because of him or her or anybody. You gotta be willing to put in the effort. You get what you give. And even if it doesn't work at first, it might eventually start working. Every time you do something and it doesn't work, you still learn from it. And that's what matters. That's how you keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Or losing. You might end up having a bad run in a D&D session, but that's okay. You gotta have a little bit of rainy weather in your story, because that's what makes the flowers grow.